Hello there, adventurers, and welcome to Wally DM. Today we're going to take a look at the brand new subclass that you can find in Fizban Treasury of Dragons, and this is going to be the Drakewarden Ranger. Now this is a ranger that is going to rely on its companion, and that's going to be in the entire build. So we're going to take a look at how I would build this character. Now for those of you new to the channel, do keep in mind that I do not build for optimization, but I like to go more for theme and for fun of the character build. But with that in mind, we're going to begin this character at level 1. And we're going to use D&D Beyond to advance this character all the way up to level 11. And along the way, I'm going to explain every choice that I make that is going to include spells, skills, and options. So I hope you're ready. This is going to be a lot of fun. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below. It helps the channel out a lot. So let's get started. So here we are on D&D Beyond with our level 1 Ranger Zednar. Now, when I set out to build this character, I wanted to have a resistance sub-theme, and we're going to get a few resistances, whether they're going to be permanent or temporary, and those are going to come through our race selection, through some of the spells that we select, and eventually through our Drake companion that is going to level up with us as we progress as an adventurer. So with regards to having resistances as a race, I wanted to use the brand new Dragonborn options that we can find in Fizban Treasury of Dragons. Now, with that in mind, I contemplated what resistance do I want to have for this character. And that lies solely on the fact that when we pick a color or a dragon type for our Dragonborn, that whatever element they get is a breath weapon, so it's offensive, and it also has a resistance, which is defensive. So if we picked a red Dragonborn, then we would have a breath weapon that is fire, and we would have fire resistance. And I narrowed it down to 3, which was the red Dragonborn for fire, the green Dragonborn for poison, and the Topaz Dragonborn for necrotic damage. Now, I did end up selecting the Topaz Dragonborn, and let's go over some of those racial traits. And the main reason I did that was because I'm going to get the spell Absorb Elements at 2nd level, and I can use a reaction to gain resistance to fire, so that takes care of that. And later on, our Drake companion, which I'm going to name him Gruel, like the Ravnica Guild, which is red and green, because I'm going to switch off a lot between fire and poison, which are both, red and green drakes. But there's no way for me later to get necrotic damage using either spells or using my Drake companion Gruel. So I figured, why not start off as a Topaz Dragon and have that necrotic damage? Now, if you plan to play a Dragonborn like I do, then perhaps whatever module you are playing is going to have a lot to say about that. If you're playing Curse of Strahd, for instance, there's a lot of undead, so you may want to pick a Topaz Dragon like I am. But if you're playing a campaign like Avernus, which is centered through the 9 Hells and Avernus, then you may want to pick the red Dragonborn for that fire damage. So it's going to depend on the campaign you're playing and what you want to be resistance to and what kind of breath weapon you want to have for your Dragonborn. So with all of that in mind, let's take a look at a few of the abilities. The first is our breath weapon. Now we get 2 uses of our breath weapon per long rest. That is going to be a DC 13 save that is based on our constitution. And if a creature is caught in this 15-foot cone of necrotic energy, then they're going to take a d10 of necrotic damage. And what's great about this is even if they do make the same throw, they're still going to take half that damage. Usually, a lot of times that wouldn't even be there. It would either be save or miss. So they're at least going to take half of that necrotic damage. And I believe when we get up to higher levels, I think 5th level, we'll get an extra die on that. And again, as you can see here on D&D Beyond, you can use this twice per long rest. And the next feature of our Dragonborn is Draconic Resistance. We now have resistance to necrotic damage. Now we also get 2 more abilities, which I find very fascinating. The first one is going to be Psionic Mind, and we are able to send telepathic messages to any creature that we can see within 30 feet of us. We do not need to share any language, but the creature must be able to understand at least one language to be able to comprehend and our messages. And we are also going to get Gem Flight, so we can use a bonus action to manifest spectral wings for 1 minute, and for that duration we gain a flying speed equal to our walking speed, and we can hover. We can, once we use this trait, we can't use it again until we finish a long rest. Now, as far as Gem Flight goes, as you can see here, we don't get that until 5th level, so a little bit early on that. I'm not sure why it showed up, but it did. But yeah, so something to look forward to 5th level. We are going to be a ranger that's going to use archery, so our Gem Flight will be kind of nice, so we can fly and hover and shoot our arrows. But we'll talk about more of that when we get to 5th level and our combat tactics that we use. Now, as far as ability scores are concerned, I want a really high dexterity because I want good armor class, and I am going to be an archer. I want very high constitution because a lot of the spells that I select are going to require concentration, and it also affects my breath weapon. Not that that's super important, but it's kind of nice. And then rangers are wisdom based, and a lot of the skills that I picked are wisdom based. Now, our wisdom isn't going to come into play too much, so I felt okay putting a 14 on that. That gives us a +2, and it's going to help a few of our skills more than it is our spells or anything along those lines. Now, since he is a Dragonborn, I did decide to go with a 10 in strength. Now, as far as intelligence and charisma, I did have to dump those. I was using point buy, trying to get those other ability scores high, so both of them are going to suffer at an 8. The charisma, I'm not too upset about, because the way I'm going to play Zednar is he's going to be kind of a selfish, grumpy Dragonborn that's not really into conversation and things like that. But once he has his Drake Gruul around, then you see like this whole other side of him. He's just like this big old Dragonborn pet lover. He really is selfish and grumpy around everybody else, but, you know, shows all of this attention and love for his Drake. So with combinations of our background and the ranger class, the skills that we are proficient in are going to be acrobatics, animal handling, insight, perception, and survival. I did want to get nature, but I wasn't able. I had to pick between nature, animal handling, and survival. And since nature is an intelligence skill, which I still don't understand why, I really wish it was wisdom based, but it's not, but that's fine. But I decided not to go with nature, so we'll suffer a -1 penalty if we have to make a nature check, but I'm pretty happy with the other skills that I picked. Now, I am using Tasha's Cauldron of Everything's ranger options. So at 1st level, I'm going to get the Depth Explorer ability, and coming with that is going to be Canny at 1st level, so it's going to allow me to speak 2 additional languages, and I'm also going to be able to have expertise in one of my skills. So expertise will double my proficiency bonus on that, and of course I decided to go with perception, which is now going to give us a +6 at level 1, which is really good. As far as languages are concerned, my Draconic friend Gruul is going to speak Draconic. That's how I'm going to give him commands. So I made sure I've got Draconic. And then I just picked a few other ones that I thought would be relevant, such as Infernal, Abyssal, and Goblin. And of course, don't forget, as part of being our Gem Dragonborn, we have that telepathy where we can communicate with someone if they at least understand one language. So that'll always come in handy. And our other ranger ability we're going to get at 1st level is going to be Favored Foe. And again, this is an option from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything that says whenever we hit a creature with an attack roll, we can call on our mystical bond with nature to mark the target as our favored enemy for 1 minute or until we lose concentration. So again, already we're starting to see that a lot of our abilities and our spells are going to require concentration. So this is one right here with Favored Foe. The first time on each of our turns that we hit our favorite enemy and deal damage to it, including when we first mark it, we can increase that damage by 1d4. Now we can use this ability a number of times equal to proficiency bonus, and we regain all expended uses when we finish a long rest. Now, Favored Foe is going to be very important for us because I know this may sound blasphemous to a few of the Ranger archery players out there, but we are not going to be picking Hunter's Mark at 2nd level, and I will explain that more in a little bit. But Favored Foe is going to fill in decent for us, probably not as good as Hunter's Mark, but it should be able to do the trick. Now, as far as our equipment's concerned, we have an armor class of 14. That is thanks to our leather armor and our +3 dexterity bonus. We have 13 hit points thanks to our high constitution. And we are going to be in combat with our longbow, which we get a +5. And we're going to do a d8 +3 damage. And of course, don't forget, we also have our necrotic breath weapon that we can use in a 15-foot cone. So that's going to do it for us at level 1. Let's see what's next in store for Zednar as we level up to level 2. Okay, so we're back on D&D Beyond with our level 2 Ranger Zednar. Now, at level 2, we do get to pick a fighting style, and as previously mentioned, we are going to be a longbow archer, so I picked the archery style. Now, that is going to give us a +2 on our to-hit rolls. Currently, we have 1 attack with our longbow, and now it is going to be at a +7 for a d8 +3 of damage. Now, I also took the liberty of feeling that we probably would have gotten enough gold from level 1. Maybe we had to trade in our original leather armor, and I did upgrade to studded leather armor, which is going to give us an armor class of 15. Now, a second level ranger does get 2 first level spell slots and gets to select 2 spells from the ranger spell list. Now, the 2 spells that I chose are Absorb Elements and Entangle. I mentioned Absorb Elements earlier. Again, we have a sub-theme of resistance to damage, and being a Topaz Dragonborn, we have that permanent necrotic resistance, which would come in handy, especially in an undead campaign or a session. But now we also can use our reaction to cast Absorb Elements, and what this does is it gives us resistance to either acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage we choose when we cast a spell, and that resistance will last until the beginning of our next turn. Now, there's a second part of this that will store some of that energy, and we can unleash a d6 of that damage on our next melee attack, but since we're going to be using a longbow, it will be rare and far in between when we actually use that part of the spell. But again, in a pinch, if we get hit by a fireball or some type of thunder wave or damage along those lines, we can use our reaction and we can gain some temporary resistance, which is why I absolutely love this spell. One of my favorites. I also picked up Entangle. Now, with Entangle, we can have grasping weeds and vines to sprout from the ground in a 20-foot square, starting from a point of origin within 90 feet of us. And for the duration, these plants are going to turn the ground into difficult terrain. Now, any creature that is in this area with our Entangle spell needs to make a strength saving throw or is going to be restrained by this spell. Now, those that fail the strength saving throw and are restrained can try to make a strength check on their turn. That's going to take their action. But what is going to be good for us on this is, number 1, it reduces their movement speed to 0, and since we're a ranged combat fighter, that's going to be nice. We can move further away if we need to. It is going to give them disadvantage on their attacks, so if we are in melee combat with them, we could use our movement to try to get away. It may provoke an attack of opportunity, but there's a good chance they're going to miss with that disadvantage. And it's also going to give advantage to anyone that's attacking them. So if we have an ally there, or in future levels when our Drake is there in melee combat, that'll give them an advantage on the attack. So I really like this spell. It can capture more than one. It's a 20-foot square, so it can get a couple of different foes. So I think it's going to be really nice. Now, again, I did mention we're not going to be taking Hunter's Mark because that requires a bonus action, and we're going to need that bonus action to command our Drake. Speaking of Gruul, he's waiting for us at level 3, so let's advance our character up there and get our Draconic friend. So Zednar is now a level 3 Dragonborn Ranger, and we get to pick our archetype, which is going to be the Drakewarden. Now, part of the base Ranger class and part of the optional rules that you'll find in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is at 3rd level, we're going to get an ability called Primal Awareness, which is going to give us a few spells when we reach different levels. So at 3rd level, we're going to get the spell Speak with Animals. Now, we can use one of our spell slots to cast Speak with Animals, but we also get 1 free use of it per day. So that's a nice little ability to get as a 3rd level ranger. Now, our first Drakewarden ability is going to be Draconic Gift. That means we're going to get the Thaumaturgy cantrip and Tongue of Dragons, which will give us an additional language. Now, Thaumaturgy's got a various amount of different uses, so I'm sure we can find a few. That booming voice up to 3 times louder. Perhaps if our Draconic friend gets a little bit too far away, they would be able to hear us if we use Thaumaturgy. But let's get to the absolute best part about becoming a 3rd level Drakewarden, and that is our Drake companion Gruul. So as an action, we can magically summon the Drake that is bound to us. It appears in an unoccupied space of our choice, and that is within 30 feet of us. Now, this Drake is a companion. They can understand Draconic, so that is how we're going to give them our verbal commands. But don't forget, as a Topaz Gem Dragon, we also have the ability to telepathically communicate with a creature. So if we need to, we can communicate telepathically, or we can give commands in Draconic. Now, pretty much to sum things up as far as our Drake companion is concerned, when we summon our companion, we are going to pick a Draconic essence. Now this is either going to be acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison. And our Drake will have immunity to whatever we choose. So I picked the name Gruul because, again, I would like to have a red or a green Drake that is either going to be fire immune or poison immune. But actually, part of summoning this Drake, you don't have to pick a certain color. If you want your Drake companion to be the same color every time you summon it, regardless of what the Draconic essence is, you can do that with no problem. So our Drake companion is going to have a movement speed of 40 feet. They're going to have an armor class of 14 plus their proficiency bonus. So at 3rd level will be an armor class of 16. Hit points is going to be 5 plus 5 times our ranger level. So that'll be 15 plus 5 is 20 at 3rd level. They're also going to have dark vision, perception, languages. It does say Draconic here. Now, I don't know if that means that our Drake can speak Draconic, but at least they can understand it. I would probably leave that up to your imagination and your conversation with your dungeon master. Now, as an action in combat, they have a melee attack that's +3 plus our proficiency bonus, so that'll be a +5 to hit. It has a reach of 5 feet, and it can do damage to one target equal to 1d6 plus our proficiency bonus and piercing damage, so that'd be 1d6 plus 2 here at 3rd level. Now, what's really cool about our Drake is it has an ability called Infused Strike. Now, this is a reaction that cannot target the Drake itself, but it can target another creature within 30 feet of the Drake as long as the Drake can see that creature. So a lot of times it's probably going to go on us, but we can also add this to our allies, especially if there's something like a critical hit or we are not doing an attack. Perhaps we're going to cast a spell on our turn. Then we can use our Drake's Infused Strike reaction to add extra damage. And what that does is that gives an extra d6 of whatever our Draconic essence is. So let's say we pick poison. Then an attack that we choose by using the reaction of the Drake is going to deal an extra d6 of poison damage. So if we are firing off an arrow and we hit, we can use the reaction to apply that damage to our roll. So a really cool ability, and I really like Gruul, our Drake companion. I think this is going to be a lot of fun to have in combat, to have out of combat. And the neat thing about our Drake companion is it is with us the entire way until it dies or until we die or until we resummon it. So it does take a 1st level spell slot or higher to resummon this creature as an action. So let's say we are in a place where we need it to go into a fiery pit and it has poison immunity at this point. We can resummon our Drake with a 1st level spell slot or higher and pick fire this time, and now the Drake has fire immunity and we can send them in. So all kinds of different applications that we can use for our Drake companion. Now, as a reminder, when we are in combat, our Drake companion is going to require our bonus action every turn, unless we want him to take the dodge action. So with that in mind, my spell selections, I believe I stated earlier, is not going to include any bonus action spells, and that's going to include Hunter's Mark. I'm really going to concentrate on having Zednar being able to command his Drake in combat. Now this is going to get a lot more fun at level 5 when we get 2nd level spells, and we'll discuss a little bit more combat options when we get to there. So as far as a spell is concerned, at 3rd level, I now have 3 spell slots at 1st level, and I picked Goodberry because I believe it's just an all-around good ranger spell. So that is our level 3 Drakewarden Ranger with Gruul the Drake. Let's advance to level 4, and I do have a feat in mind that's going to help our character in combat. So here we are with Zednar, our Drakewarden Ranger at level 4. Now there's not a lot going on, our spells don't change, our proficiency bonus doesn't change, but we do get an ability score increase or a feat. Now if you noticed earlier when we did our level 1 ability scores, I set my dexterity at 17 in anticipation of the feat that I did take. And that is the Piercer feat that you can find in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So right off the bat we get a +1 to that. That is going to put our dexterity up to 18, which is now a +4, and Piercer reads as follows. Once per turn, when we hit a creature with an attack that deals piercing damage, which is going to be our bow and arrows, and you can re-roll one of the attack's damage dice, and you must use a new roll. So if we roll a 1 or 2 and feel that we could do better, we can try our luck and re-roll that die. It also states when you score a critical hit that deals piercing damage to a creature, you can roll 1 additional damage die when determining the extra piercing damage that the target takes. So that's going to be splendid if we roll our natural 20s with a critical hit. So that's all I have for level 4. We have a ton of stuff going on at level 5, so let's jump right in. So here we are back on D&D Beyond with our level 5 Drakewarden Ranger, Zednar, and his Draconic companion, Gruul. Now at level 5, our proficiency bonus is going to go to a +3. That is going to help our saving throws, our skills, our attacks, our damage, all kinds of great things happening there. And as a ranger, we are also going to gain the ability Extra Attack. So now when we take the attack action on our turn, we are going to be able to fire 2 arrows from our longbow, and we are looking at a +9 to hit, and we do a d8 +4 of piercing damage. Now don't forget we do have the piercing feat, so if we roll very low on one of these hits, we can re-roll that die, and also if we do a critical hit on either one of these, we can add an extra die to that as well. Now we do have the reaction of our Drake that we could throw on as some extra damage, maybe a d6 of poison damage. And we also have that favored foe ability from first level that we could use, but that requires concentration, and we are going to use that concentration for our new 2nd level spell. So let's take a quick look at that. As a 5th level ranger, we now have 5 first level spell slots and 2 second level spell slots, and our new combat action is going to be Summon Beast. So we are going to call forth a bestial spirit that manifests in an unoccupied space that we can see within range. Now this, we need to choose either air, land, or water, and we are always going to choose land for our summoned beast, and it's going to take on or resemble an animal of our choice that is native to that chosen environment. Being a Draconic, a Dragonborn, perhaps we'll choose some type of a lizard or chameleon or something like that. Now what's great about our summoned beast is it does not require an action by us to give it verbal commands. Now if you remember, Gruul, our Draconic friend, requires our bonus action. With the summoned beast, it does not require an action. It's more or less a free action to command it what to do. So what this is going to look like in combat on our turn is round 1, we are going to use our bonus action to command our Drake to get within melee range. And then we are going to use our action to cast Summon Beast. Now with our beast summoned, both our beast and our Drake companion share our initiative, but take their turn immediately after ours. So I feel that this is a way that we could possibly stack them to our advantage. So what I would do is I've already used my bonus action to have my Drake move into melee range. So it would go first and it would use its bite in combat. Then I would command my Summon Beast to move into melee range to attack the same foe or enemy or monster that my Drake is attacking. And once that happens, since we chose land as our Summon Beast, we get an ability called Pack Tactics. The beast has advantage on an attack roll against a creature if at least one of the beast's allies is within 5 feet of the creature and that ally isn't incapacitated. Now, using a 2nd level spell to summon our beast, it does have an ability called Maul, which is going to be a melee attack, and it is going to give a +5 to hit because it goes off of our spell attack modifier, which is a +5 here at 5th level, and it's going to do a d8 +4 plus the spell's level of piercing damage, so a d8 +6 here at 5th level, which is pretty good, and it's got that advantage. So moving these two beasts, our Draconic friend and our Summon Beast into position, this is going to give advantage on the attacks of the Summon Beast. And once we get into higher levels, and if we get a 4th level spell slot and we use Summon Beast with a 4th level spell slot, then our beast is going to get 2 attacks, and it is going to do 1d8 +8 per attack. So very nice, and this is going to be combat for us a lot moving forward. Looking at our second round of combat, we're going to use our bonus action to command our Drake to stay in melee combat and use its bite. Our summon beast doesn't require an action, so we'll also command it to stay where it's at and continue to fight in melee combat. And then we can use our action to stay at a distance and fire off 2 shots with our arrows. And if we haven't used our Drake's reaction yet, we can use that to apply that d6 of poison or fire damage or whatever it is at that time to one of our attacks. So this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot going on in our combat, having 2 beasts to command and ourselves staying back. Now, do remember that the beast does require concentration, so we won't be able to use our favored foe ability, but this is going to be a lot better for sure. So things are looking really good for our Drakewarden Ranger at level 5, but there's still a couple of abilities that I'd like to mention. The first one is going to be our breath weapon. Again, we can breathe a 15-foot cone of necrotic energy, and now we get a 2d10 worth of damage. So if we need to use this, we can use it 3 times per day. It does require an action. At 5th level, we have an attack or save of a dexterity 14, and it will still do half damage. So 2d10 of damage is pretty decent. And of course, we still have our racial traits. If you remember at level 1, I mentioned the gem flight. Now this finally kicks into action. Starting at 5th level, we can use a bonus action to manifest spectral wings on our body. These wings last for 1 minute. For the duration, we gain a flying speed equal to our walking speed, and we can hover. Once we use this trait, we can't do so again until we finish a long rest. So this can be very useful in a rough terrain. We could use this out of combat if we wanted to. If we needed to fly up to something, we could sprout our wings. We have a minute to get up there, so that would be fine. But where I see using this in combat is we would actually have to have our Drake take the dodge action for 1 turn, and then we could use our spectral wings to give us flying, and then we could fly or hover maybe 30, 40 feet up in the air, maybe over our Drake, and then we can attack from the air. So let me know in the comments section below what you would do with flight, seeing that it does require a bonus action, and how you would use it with this character. That's all I have for us for level 5. Let's move on and advance our character to level 6. So here we are with our level 6 character. Not a lot going on here. We do not get any extra spell slots or get to select any extra spells. And the 2 new features that we do get are from previous choices. And again, these are optional choices that we chose from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So part of that was the Primal Awareness, which gives us extra spells when we reach certain levels. And this one I actually missed was a 5th level ability, and that is Beast Sense. So we now have the ability to cast Beast Sense. That's a 2nd level spell. And the other one goes off our Deft Explorer. Again, that is an option that we got from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And now we get the Roving ability, which is going to increase our walking speed by 5. And we also gain a climbing and a swimming speed. So that is really cool. We can now have 35 feet of movement, and we can use that for climbing and swimming as well. So that's all I have for us for level 6. Let's take some new Drakewarden features and have some fun at level 7. So here we are back on D&D Beyond with our Gem Dragonborn Ranger, Zednar. Now, he has an armor class of 16, 67 hit points, and we do get to select a new spell. And I did decide to go a combat route. It was between this and Pass Without Trace, and I feel like this would be a little bit better for us in a different combat scenario, and I chose Silence. So for those of you not familiar, this is a 2nd level spell that takes 1 action. For the duration, no sound can be created within or pass through a 20-foot radius sphere centered on a point that I choose within range. Any creature or object entirely inside the sphere is immune to thunder damage, and creatures are deafened while entirely inside it. Casting a spell that includes a verbal component is impossible there. So what I'm planning for, and it would probably depend on the game or the campaign that I'm playing in, is enemy spellcasters. So what this type of combat would look like, we would use our bonus action to command our Drake to get in melee combat with that spellcaster, and then as our action, we would cast Silence. Now, one of the things that you might be thinking to yourself is we do need to speak to our Drake to be able to command it. We have to be able to give it commands in Draconic. But don't forget, as a Topaz Dragonborn, we do have a psionic mind, and that is going to allow us to send telepathic messages to any creatures that we can see that are within 30 feet of us. So even if our Drake is sent into combat and we cast a 20-foot sphere of silence around it, we can still telepathically give it communications and commands. So this is going to be a great way. We would not be summoning our beasts because silence does require that we have concentration. So that would totally throw out our summon beasts that we usually do. But against enemy spellcasters, we can put this silence up there. We can have our Drake up there that will get an attack of opportunity if they try to get away. And we can try to corner that spellcaster. So that should be a great tactic for us. However, what I'm most excited about 7th level is the improvements to our Drake. So at 7th level, we get an ability called Bond of Fang and Scale. Now this is a Drakewarden feature, and this states that the bond we share with our Drake intensifies, protecting you and stoking the Drake's fury. When you summon your Drake, it grows wings on its back and gains a flying speed equal to its walking speed. In addition, while we have our Drake, we get the following abilities. Drake Mount. The Drake grows to medium size. So it was small before, now it's medium, and it reflects our special bond. You can use the Drake as a mount if your size is medium or smaller, but while you're riding your Drake, you can't use the flying speed. No problems whatsoever there. If we want to ride our Drake as a mount, we can do so. I don't really see Zednar taking advantage of that ability very often, at least not until the Drake can fly, which comes at a much later level, but it is nice to have that there just in case. The next ability we get from the Bond of Fang and Scale is Magic Fang. The Drake's Bite attack deals an extra d6 damage of the type chosen for the Drake's Draconic essence. So now not only is our Drake Bite going to do a d6 of piercing, it's now going to do a d6 of poison or a d6 of fire, depending on whatever the essence is when we summoned it. So that is fantastic because we will be using our Drake a lot in melee combat. And then the final ability we get from this is Resistance. You gain resistance to the damage type chosen for your Drake's Draconic essence. And as you remember, I did summon a Poison Drake, and as you can see here on my defenses, I now have resistance to necrotic damage and to poison damage. And don't forget, that is kind of our sub-theme with the resistances. I also have the first level spell of Absorb Elements, so if I need to get temporary resistance to fire or cold or lightning, I'm able to do that as well. So fantastic abilities, and it is very cool to see the connection and the synergy between our Drake and our Drakewarden Ranger. So before we move on to the next level, let's take a quick look at our Drake Companion. Now on D&D Beyond, I did need to go to Actions and then the Action tab to be able to see this, and it has it all laid out for us. Our Drake Companion now has an armor class of 17. It has proficiency in saving throws, giving it a +4 to Dex, a +5 to Wisdom. There's our Draconic Essence, which we get to choose when we summon it. Our Bite attack is going to do a +6 to hit, and that is one target, so that's a D6 +3 piercing damage, plus a d6 of poison damage or fire or whatever it is that we had chosen. And of course, don't forget, we still get that infused strike that we can use on our attack as the ranger or on one of our allies, and that is a d6 of damage as well. And our Drake also has 40 hit points, so coming along very nicely. Again, that's one of the features and the things that I like about the Drakewarden Ranger is that our Drake grows and develops as we advance in levels. We kind of grow together, and I think that is just fantastic. So that's all I have for us for level 7. Let's advance our character up to level 8 and take our ability score improvements and see what's next in store. So here we are at level 8 with Zednar, our Topaz Gem Dragonborn Drakewarden Ranger, and I chose to go with an ability score improvement instead of a feat. I felt that it was very important to get our dexterity as high as we could because there's so many things that are riding on it. So using the ability score improvement, we now have a dexterity of 20. That is a +5 modifier, and of course D&D Beyond has taken care of making all the adjustments. As far as our longbow is concerned, again, we have 2 attacks. That's going to give us a +10 on those attacks, and now we do a D8 +5 of piercing damage, so that is very good. And of course, our dexterity also affects our armor class, so we're now looking at a 17, which is pretty decent for our ranger. Now, the only other ability we get as an 8th level ranger is a ranger ability called Land Stride. Starting at 8th level, moving through non-magical difficult terrain costs you no extra movement. You can also pass through non-magical plants without being slowed by them and without taking damage from them if they have thorns, spines, or a similar hazard. In addition, you have advantage on saving throws against plants that are magically created or manipulated to impede movement, and those created by the Entangle spell. So a nice little ability that will help us if we get into difficult terrain types of areas. We don't actually get any spells at this level, so it is time to move on. I'm really liking the way our character is coming together, so let's take a look and see what Zednar looks at level 9. So here we are with Zednar at level 9. Our proficiency bonus is now a +4, and that's going to help us with our saving throws. In fact, let's take a look at a few of these improvements and see where we're at level 9. We have a +9 to dex saving throws. Our acrobatics is a +9. We have a +10 to perception. Again, we use Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, one of the optional features to be able to get expertise in perception, which I do believe is fairly important for this character. And our longbow attacks are now at a +11, so pretty good as far as all of that is concerned. Now we do get our first 2 3rd level spell slots, so we now have 4 first, 3 second, and 2 third. And instead of going with a 3rd level spell, again, my spell selection is a little bit limited because I am saving that bonus action in combat to control and give commands to my Drake. So I don't mind it actually, though. I kind of am enjoying going through and selecting spells that I probably wouldn't have selected if I was building a normal ranger. I probably would have picked a lot more bonus action type spells for action economy, but now kind of making myself pick action only spells, I'm rather enjoying it. So with this one, I decided to go with Pass Without Trace. And if you're unfamiliar with this, this gives us a veil of shadows and silence that radiates from us, masking us and our companions from detection. So for the duration, each creature I choose within 30 feet of me, including myself, has a +10 bonus to dexterity stealth checks and can't be tracked except by magical means. Now, a creature that receives this bonus leaves behind no tracks or other traces of passage, and this is going to be a concentration spell for an hour. So this is a fantastic spell to have amongst your party, and very few other classes get it. So I'm excited to be able to contribute to the party of adventurers with Pass Without Trace here at 9th level. But before we move on, I kind of want to look at our spell slots because, again, I didn't pick a 3rd level spell, but I do have 2 3rd level spell slots, and I will probably more than likely use those for Summon Beasts. Now, you do see Speak with Plants there. That is actually a ranger ability that automatically gives us that spell, so we have Speak with Plants. I'm sure that could come in handy at some point, but Summon Beasts is probably the spell I'm going to use to upcast for 3rd level. Again, I probably won't use those for Absorb Elements, because all that does at 3rd level or upping it to a 3rd level spell is add extra damage, and we're not going to be in melee combat. So 3rd level spell slots will be used for Summon Beasts. My 2nd level spell slots are going to be used for either Silence or for Pass Without Trace, and then my 1st level spell slots are going to be used for Absorb Elements and resummoning my Drake. So everything is falling into order. So that's all I have for us at level 9. Let's advance our character up to level 10. So here we are with Zednar, our level 10 Dragonborn Drakewarden Ranger. We have an armor class of 17 and 94 hit points. Now, we don't get any Drakewarden abilities here, but we do get a few features as far as being a ranger. Now, one of those is going to go way back to our optional selection that we did with the Depth Explorer at level 1, and now we get the ability called Tireless. As an action, you can give yourself a number of temporary hit points equal to 1d8 plus your wisdom modifier, and you can use this action a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, gaining all expended uses when you finish a long rest. In addition, whenever you finish a short rest, your exhaustion level, if any, is decreased by 1. Now, I never played a ranger before Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, but this Depth Explorer, looking at the differences between original ranger and optional ranger from Tasha's Cauldron, I really love the Depth Explorer ability. It's one of my favorites, and it's actually one of the things that makes me want to play a ranger. Speaking of which, the other ranger ability that we would have gotten using the original ranger would be hide in plain sight, but instead of that, we're going with the options from Tasha's Cauldron, and we get Nature's Veil. You draw on the powers of nature to hide yourself from view briefly. As a bonus action, you can magically become invisible along with any equipment you are wearing or carrying until the start of your next turn. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you gain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. And as you can see there, it does require a bonus action if we're to use it in combat, and we get 4 uses of it. Now, I'm very excited about this as a normal ranger, but as a Drakewarden Ranger, if we have our Drake with us, this might not be as efficient. Of course, we could try to unsummon our Drake or leave our Drake somewhere else if we needed to use this ability to hide, or if we just need to hide ourselves where they can see our Drake but not us. I mean, I guess that could happen. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of this ability as far as a Drakewarden Ranger specifically. So that's all I have for us for level 10. We're going to advance another level and see some more Drakewarden Ranger abilities coming up at level 11. So our Drakewarden Ranger is now level 11. Now here we are on the back end of D&D Beyond, because I am going to pick my first 3rd level spell, as we do gain one more that we will know. And I had a little bit of difficulty deciding which I wanted, and I kind of just wanted to run through that with you real quick. I was looking at Elemental Weapon as far as making our bow and arrow magical for up to an hour, just in case the situation dictated for that. But I would hope by level 11 that my dungeon master, or at least talking to my dungeon master, would result in the fact that I would get a magical bow at some point. So I'm going to negate that. I also looked at protection from energy. Again, we are going with kind of a resistance immunity type of a theme. And what this does is, for the duration, the willing creature you touch has resistance to 1 damage of type of your choice. Now we get that resistance from our Drake, so we could actually just resummon our Drake to get fire resistance or cold resistance. But we could also apply this to our Drake. Let's say it has immunity to fire, but then we could also give it the resistance to cold. Or if our Drake has immunity to fire, we have resistance to fire, and we could actually touch another adventurer or ally and give them resistance to fire. So this would actually be help. This would probably have been my second choice. Now, assuming we didn't have any type of healers in the party, Revivify is always a solid option, and someone in your party should have it if that is available. But I'm going to assume that I am traveling with a cleric that is going to be able to use that if the time comes up. So the spell that I'm going to choose is Ardalon's Stride. Now this does require a bonus action, but I'm only going to use it for my character in an emergency situation. The billowing flames of a dragon blast from your feet, granting you explosive speed. For the duration, your speed increases by 20 feet, and moving doesn't provide opportunity attacks. When you move within 5 feet of a creature or an object that isn't being worn or carried, it takes 6 fire damage from the trail of your heat. A creature or object can take damage only once this turn. So while I'm not too worried about the fire damage, that's beside the point, but having an ability to escape. And again, my character is going to be a bit selfish, so this gives him as a bonus action. He's going to be able to get away without having an opportunity attack. He's going to increase his speed by 20 feet, so that would give us 55 total. And don't forget too that we also have our Gem Dragonborn wings, and that is equal to our flying speed. So if we are concentrating on this, then we will actually have a flying speed of 55 feet. So this is again a safety outlet to be able to get away from danger should the need arise. Let me know in the comment section below, taking a look at these 3rd level spells, which one would you choose for a Drakewarden Ranger? But now with our spell selection out of the way, let's take a look at our Drakewarden Ranger ability we get, and this one is called Drake's Breath. As an action, you can exhale a 30-foot cone of damaging breath or cause your Drake to exhale it. Choose acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison damage, your choice, and it doesn't have to match your Drake's Draconic essence. Each creature in the cone must make a dexterity saving throw against your spell save DC, which I believe is a DC 14, taking 8d6 damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. This damage increases to 10d6 when you reach 15th level of this class. So basically, we are getting a Draconic breath, or a dragon's breath, that is the equivalent of a 3rd level fireball. But it doesn't have to be fire. It can be lightning, it can be poison, it can be cold, or acid. That is fantastic. Now, it is a 30-foot cone, but it doesn't have to come from us. We can move our Drake into position and have our Drake as an action expend this out. So it keeps us safe, and our Drake just goes through and just wreaks some havoc with some area of effect damage. I absolutely love this. This is amazing. Now, one more thing I do want to point out before we move on is our own breath weapon, our necrotic breath weapon, is now a 3d10 of damage, and it now has a dexterity DC of 15. So that is fantastic as well. So that is going to do it for our level 11 Topaz Dragonborn Drakewarden Ranger with his draconic friend Gruul. And we are looking at ending here level 11 with a 17 armor class, 103 hit points. And next up would be level 12, in which I would probably once again just take the ability score improvements, not a feat, and move those two into wisdom. So I would probably give myself a wisdom of 16. Now, before we end this video, I do want to take a look at the Drakewarden Ranger's final ability, and that is a level 15 ability called Perfected Bond. Your bond to your Drake reaches the pinnacle of its power. While your Drake is summoned, you and the Drake gain the following benefits. I love it that both of us get this. Empowered Bite. The Drake's bite attack deals an extra d6 damage of the chosen type for its draconic essence. So that, I believe, has our Drake companion looking as follows. Armor class of 19 with 80 hit points, and it has a bite attack that is a +8 to hit, and it is now going to do a d6 +5 of piercing damage, but now it will also, in addition to that, do 2d6 of poison damage, or fire or cold, whatever you picked for its draconic essence. So fantastic. I love seeing our Drake evolve like this and just get more powerful as we get more powerful. Now, to continue on with the Perfected Bond ability, we get Large Drake. So our Drake now grows to large size, and when you ride your Drake, it is no longer prohibited from using the flying speed of Bond of Fang and Scale. So now our draconic friend can fly with us on the back of it. Fantastic. And then Reflexive Resistance. When either you or the Drake takes damage while you're within 30 feet of each other, you can use your reaction to give yourself or the Drake resistance to that instance of damage. You can use this reaction a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So to finalize the resistance sub-theme of this character, this ability, Reflexive Resistance, we can just use our reaction, and we could give ourself or our Drake resistance to fire, or cold, or necrotic, or radiant, or piercing, or bludgeoning, or things along that lines. Being able to use this 4 times a day is absolutely fantastic. I love this ability, and I am really looking forward to playing this character. What a fun subclass. I dig it. So that is my character build for the Drakewarden Ranger. This was a lot of fun to go along with the spell selections and to see how our draconic companion rises from a small little Drake to a large Drake that we could ride into combat. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of this character build, and what are some of the things that you would do differently. What selections would you make, and are you excited to play this Drakewarden Ranger? Also, if you like my character builds, be sure to subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends. Thank you very much for watching, and on to the next.